Welcome everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the vlog. This one's going to have a bit of talking about it at the start, especially about my mental game. If you want to skip ahead to where I talk about the coaching session I just had, I'll go ahead and put a timestamp for you in the description and here on screen if you just want to go ahead and jump there. The genesis of this particular coaching session starts with the most recent scratch eliminator at Lakeside Recreation. I went into it as I did the last one, viewing it as an opportunity to bowl in a sports shot and to learn from it. Getting experience how my shot is affected on such a pattern and observing how it changes as the pattern breaks down. I feel like that's a really healthy approach until I can get better where I can actually, feel somewhat competitive in those environments. Unfortunately, the night was rather short-lived. For whatever reason, my mechanics were just completely shot. I couldn't hit a mark to save my life. I missed 5 boards left and then 5 boards right. Nothing I was able to identify. Timing, push away, footwork, fit. Nothing that could correct the problem. I think I threw a total of 1 good shot out of the entirety of warm-up and game 1. As my frustration built up, I had to force myself to think through what was going on and what was the best for me to do at this point. With Christy's help, I'd already gone through all the main focus points I've had with my game recently, and none of them were really the culprit. With my inability to hit a mark, equipment changes weren't really going to help since I had nothing to adjust off of. In the end, I came to the decision that it was best for me to go ahead and just withdraw from the tournament. My body was so out of sorts with bowling that I was not going to learn anything that night at all. My mind was so out of sorts that I couldn't really communicate with Christy or Brandon about what was going on. If I kept bowling and tried to keep forcing things, there was probably an even chance that I would end up hurting myself. So we left and headed home. As I worked through the routines that my autistic self has learned in order to bring calm after a really frustrating experience, Christy and I worked out a plan for going forward. This is a thing that I've faced before, by the way. Showing up to bowl, mainly being in a pretty good place, and having my body just not work right. I often express that it can sometimes take me a game and a half to just remember how to bowl. Part of this is that autistic people often have a pretty rough time with what's called proprioception, body awareness and coordination, feeling like you're belonging in your body. I'm definitely one of those people. A friend of Christy's calls me Kempton Bubble Wrap for how often I just randomly hurt myself. Part of it though, and I hate to admit it, even though it applies to so many bowlers, is that I just do not practice enough. And when I do, I rarely practice with any specific purpose. So on that drive home, I resolved that I was going to get in contact with William, my coach, and schedule a coaching session and ask him to teach me and help me learn how to effectively practice. He instantly knew what I was talking about with the forgetting how to bowl part too. One of the pros he coaches runs into that problem pretty often too. This is something that comes up for a lot of bowlers, the lack of intention in practice. A lot of people will just go and bowl through games or whatever and just bowl like they're at league. This is fine for keeping in bowling shape and all, and it's at least exercise. But it's not necessarily going to be something that makes you better. I'm somewhat guilty of this as well. I'll spend a game practicing spares, but there's been another couple games just shooting strikes. There have been times when I've gone to practice a specific game change and try to get that solidified, but I've really gone to a practice session with a plan beyond that. Going into the session with Will, we had 2 goals. Identify anything that needs immediate fixing, and then talk about ways to improve my practicing. The first one was pretty dang easy. I spent about a game just to warm my body up. About 2/3 of the way into the game, Will comes over, tells me the first thing that he notices is that my hand position at the top of my swing is super weird. And it was doing some weird things that he spotted. I hadn't realized I was doing anything funky, but as soon as I made the mental effort to keep my hand in a better position, something I made a specific change to do some time ago, I instantly started throwing the ball better. The entirety of that first game, I was all over the place and getting poor reaction. Once my hand was back into place at the top of my swing, hitting my mark, getting good reaction, striking. That might very well what was giving me so many issues at the tournament, and I wasn't just able to identify it because that's not a thing I check on. Coaching is great, folks. Find one and work with them. After starting that fix in a little bit, he suggested a new change to my game. My crossover step, the second step in a 5-step delivery, has been fairly extreme for a while. I've largely done it as a way to ensure I'm clearing my hips and to act as a timing point. But we'll observe that the extreme amount I was crossing over was making my third step, where the left foot would have to come around the right, extremely awkward. It was having an effect on my body and my approach in a number of ways. My body was getting tweaked, it was making me rush the last couple of my steps, etc. And as I recently made a change to my starting position, clearing my hips is become much less of a problem. Will suggested that I move from crossing all the way over to just barely moving my foot in front, essentially going heel to toe with step 2. It's a subtle change, but it felt so different. It took me a little bit of time to get anywhere near feeling comfortable with the change, but once I started doing it effectively, it gave a lot of positive impact. My footwork is now really smooth, my steps more even, my body twists less. It's not perfect yet, since the small change is a pretty big effect, but it affected everything from my approach to how smooth my release was. After that, we talked a little bit about where I should focus on during my practice sessions in the near future. I've got a routine set up that I'm going to follow for the next month or so, and we'll check in again. Between this routine and the tournaments I'm bowling coming up, that should give me some good indications as to how well it is working. The plan is pretty simple. I'm going to do a game of no-step drills to focus on my hand position in the backswing and to feel how it comes off my hand at release. Following that, I'll move to one steps to marry that to working on getting my balanced leg back to a proper position at release. Then I'll shoot a full game with a full approach with a special focus on my second step. Finally, a fourth game will usually be me working on my spares. Keeping that routine and being intentional about what I get to work on will make practicing more impactful than simply throwing shots. Given that the biggest challenge I have with my bowling is consistency, spending time to hopefully train my body a little bit more specifically to remember how I'm supposed to feel when bowling should help me a lot long term. Will it work? Well, it's only really one way to know. I'm going to start the routine coming up really soon. I've got a tournament coming up that I'm going to feel pretty good about after the session, and I'll report back here to let you all know how it goes. Once again, thank you all for watching as I continue to try to improve. Hope you stick around as we keep going. Good luck and good bowling.